Hey everybody, I'm Gregory Hart. This is the Heart to Heart podcast. This is episode number 34. Today I am super stoked to talk to Paulette Kydd. I hope I'm not screwing up your last name, but Paulette, I'm super excited to talk to you. You're a nutritionist out of Woodstock, Ontario. How are you doing today?
How are you doing?
Good. Did I get your name right?
It's Kydd.
It's Kydd. I knew it was one of the two. And
Lots of people make that mistake. Don't worry.
Well, my 50-50 odds and I butchered it. That's all right. But I really appreciate you sitting down with me today. I'm super excited to talk to you about your career and what you do for a living, and maybe some tips and tricks you have for people at home that maybe aren't getting the best diet.
Yeah, I love talking about food, love talking about nutrition, so I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Could you just give us a brief introduction to what you do and what's involved in being a nutritionist?
Sure. So first, I always like to clarify, I'm not a dietitian. I'm a holistic nutritionist, different education. I chose to go that route because, I think that Canada's Food Guide is a good place to start, but I don't think that it is really necessarily the best way to eat for the majority of people. And if you are a dietitian, you sort of have to, that's kind of what you teach people is the food guide. So I'm more interested in a holistic approach, meaning that it's not just about the food. It's about how to fit nutrition into a person's lifestyle so that it optimizes their health is essentially what it is. So when I work with my clients, we start with the food, but we work on stress, we work on mindset, we work on sleep, we work on exercise, the right kind of movement, all of those things. And it's all based around a whole foods way of eating. So that's what I chose to do, holistic nutrition. And so holistic nutritionists work with, various populations in different ways. When I first started working, I worked in a health food store, and I was there as like a consultant for people who were coming in and wanted some information about their nutrition. But what I realized is that what I really like doing is I like teaching, and I like working with groups of people. So that kind of led to me doing workshops, and then it has evolved into an online business. And so what I do now is I tend to work with women, although the strategies that I teach work for men as well, but women who are struggling with feeling fat, foggy, and fatigued. That's what I say. And they have these symptoms that don't necessarily seem related, but it all has to do with their metabolism. Their metabolism is damaged from years of yo-yo dieting, from starving themselves, from over-exercising, not dealing with stress, all of these things that affect hormones and metabolism, and they're stuck. And all those things that they used to do to keep their weight in check and energy up, they don't work anymore. And so I teach them how to fix that with diet and lifestyle. So,
wow. Okay. That is a lot to unpack. And I got to say, it's exciting because I didn't know what to expect. I've never spoken to a nutritionist. I've never looked into it. I knew that there's certain things that we should consume in our body, and I'd like to know what those things are, or at least what your opinion on those things were. I'm glad that it's not just here's a piece of paper on what you should eat from Monday to Friday, stick to this. It kind of almost seems like an unattainable goal. People just kind of need to have that lenience in certain things, or they'll go crazy. So it's really cool. And I do like the fat, foggy, and fatigued. Fat, foggy, and fatigued. That's cool. It's cool how you touch on more things than just what to eat, like the lifestyle and stress and other things that really do have a big factor and play on how you feel as a human.
Yeah, we're complicated, right? So to just think that by changing your diet and not doing anything else, that's going to solve all your problems is very short-sighted, really. It's certainly the best place to start because we eat all day long, right? So that's a pretty big part of our life. But you can get so much more out of your life if you look at the rest of it.
I've always looked at it in the fact that we spend so much money. Like I'm a car guy. I like my old trucks. I'll spend hours and hours and hours and countless amounts of money to fix it up and repair it so it lasts for a really long time. But I never looked at my body the same way until literally only 75 days ago, I started this fitness journey of mine, and I took it more seriously. I realized we literally just beat the crap out of ourselves all day, give ourselves very minimal water and sleep, and just expect to just keep rolling and live a long life. And it just seems ridiculous now that you really sit down and think about it.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's funny that you talk about it in relation to cars, because I just heard this quote the other day, which I thought it fits with this. It's about how you can't take miles off a car. So when we think about that in terms of our body, so it's not, a lot of times people will talk themselves into eating some crappy food and saying, oh, well, I won't eat as much tomorrow, or I'll only eat vegetables tomorrow, or I'll do an extra workout tomorrow. And while that is helpful, you can't undo what you did today. You can't take those miles off the car, right? So I think having like those analogies and shifting your perspective on things, that's what can really have an impact and help you to be consistent. So it's neat that you think of it that way.
And it's only a recent thing that I started to think about, because
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted to be in shape for the look aspect of it. And then I realized, like, as I started getting a little older, I'm still only 27. Don't get me wrong. I know I'm not old by any means. I'm still in my 20s, but I did start getting a lot more aches and pains. I wasn't sleeping very well. I just got tired so quickly throughout the day. And I was like, I'm 27. Like, how am I
Yeah.
ready to fall asleep at the wheel driving in the middle of the afternoon? It didn't make sense
Yeah.
to me. So that's when I started to do, like, I actually interviewed someone that lost 140 pounds over a year and a bit, maybe 2 years. And she works out numerous amount of times a day, really focuses on what she consumes and how much she consumes. And it just like hit home to me. It was just like, okay, I'm not like, I'm out of shape, but I don't have an unattainable goal to reach. Like, I can change right now, and I can lose the weight, and I can feel better and sleep better. And just the 75 days I've been doing, have you ever heard of 75 hard?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I've heard that, and it's intense. But I did
Mm-hmm.
decide to do 45 minutes of exercise a day, and I started at 30 days. Then I did 60. Now I'm going to 90. But even
Mm.
just the physical activity helps so much. And then I
Yeah.
noticed, like, yes, I've started to lose weight dramatically, but then I started to get to a point when I hit 200 pounds that it was a plateau, and I realized the only way to change it, not the only way to change it, I could keep busting in the gym and eventually lose the
Mm-hmm.
weight, but changing that diet and how much I consume in a day just made that number roll way faster. And I had more energy to keep pushing in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so smart of you to do it now, because yes, you are young, but you're going to reap benefits of that like for years and years, for decades to come, right? And it's a lot easier to be proactive now, or to deal with it when you first start to notice these health issues, rather than trying to undo 10 or 15 or 20 years of abuse to your body. So
For sure.
yeah. Yeah.
When it came to nutrition, did this whole career of yours start at a young age? Like, whenever I talk to certain people that are in different careers or different walks of life, I try and figure out if it was something in their life that made them that way. Like, whether or not, if
Mm-hmm.
you had an unhealthy relationship with food at a young age and you thought, you know what, I'm going to make a change and I want to help other people make a change. Was it anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
or it was just happened to be where you were in life?
Well, I think there are a couple stages to this. So I remember being a young kid and being interested in nutrition. I don't know what triggered it, except that I've always been interested in just staying healthy. And my parents were fairly healthy, and my sister, like, no, we didn't really have any health issues. But of course, my grandparents, had various diseases. And I remember thinking, if I could be a doctor or something like that, I could help my family when they get sick. This, as a young child, this is what I thought. But there was something, I realized that how powerful the right diet could have at that age. I think I just read different magazines. And so that was, my mom used
Yeah.
to, that's what it was. My mom used to, she'd read like 5 or 6 different magazines, like every time a new edition would come out. So I would read those, and that's sort of where it started. And so I actually did apply to medical school. I didn't get in because I had no science background. It was just I applied to MAC. I don't know if you know the program at MAC, but they will take people who don't have a science background because they want a well-rounded person. Anyways, long story short, I didn't get in, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I don't think I would have been happy in that allopathic way of health. Being a doctor, maybe a naturopath would be more up my alley. But so I did end up deciding to go into nutrition. But what happened was, all these years and reading all this nutrition information, and just like anybody else who reads this stuff, you see and you hear all this controversy, right? One day they tell you coffee's good for you, the next day they say it's bad. And I got frustrated too. And I thought, okay, I really want to know the answer. Maybe if I go to school, maybe this will all become clear and I'll understand it better. So I sort of had in the back of my mind that I'd like to do this. And when I had my daughter, I have two girls, and my oldest daughter, when I first started feeding her solid food, I decided I wanted to make everything from scratch. So I really got into the nutrition at that point. So then actually I dug out this book. This was the book that kind of started it all for me. That when I started reading this book, it's called Healing Foods, and it's by Michael Murray. And he's a naturopathic doctor in the States. And I just could not get enough of it. And I thought, I'm just going to go to school, like, even if it's just for my own knowledge and to help my family. So that's what I did. And I decided to do the holistic route. And it turns out that there was a school 10 minutes from where I lived. And so I enrolled and started right away. And I've never enjoyed school so much in my life. So that's kind of how I got into the field. But in terms of doing what I'm doing now, it was more personal. So I've always been able to maintain my weight and my energy and all of that just by doing a little bit of exercise, eating healthy food, that sort of thing. But about 6 or 7 years ago, so I noticed in my late 30s, I started to have less energy, and I started to have that mid-afternoon slump where I thought I have to lay down, and I'm not a napper, but I just could not get through the day. And brain fog was terrible. And I, was used to being able to multitask and being very efficient. And I just was literally moving through fog. And I just thought, I am 37 years old. How much worse is this going to be? Am I developing dementia? I really didn't know. And it was really limiting my life. And I thought that maybe it was hormonal. I thought, well, I'm probably many years from menopause, but who knows what's going on? Let's book an appointment with a naturopath and see, what I can find out. And so while I was waiting to get into that appointment, I was getting a lot of questions from people about the ketogenic diet and what I thought of it. And so when a friend of mine wanted to try it, I said, okay, I'll do it with you. We'll do it for 2 weeks. I'm very skeptical. It's all butter and bacon. That can't be good for you. And we tried it, and I couldn't believe how much better I felt after 3 days. Energy through the roof, brain fog was gone. I didn't lose weight right away, but I didn't care. I felt so much better. I could do the thing I wanted to do. And for that reason alone, I continued eating a ketogenic diet. I ended up losing 15 or 20 pounds and just felt so much better. Now, I felt from a nutrition perspective that if I kept doing that, eating that way, I would likely become deficient in something, because you really can't eat very much in way of vegetables or fruit and stick within those guidelines. So I just, trial and error, figured out what worked for me in terms of increasing the carb amount so that I could eat salad and fruit and all of those things, but still have those benefits of the ketogenic diet. So that's what led me to create my program. It's called the Change Method. And I just teach other people how to do that, because it was life-changing for me. I got my life back. So
touching on the very beginning of that, when you talked about being a young kid and wanting to be a doctor because you wanted to help your family if they became sick, it's kind of you're being proactive to that now. You've chosen a career choice that you can help them stay healthy so that they don't get sick later on in life, or at least get sicker much, much later in life.
Yeah.
Some stuff's inevitable, but talking about your whole path through not getting into doctor school and certain schools that wouldn't accept you, and then you ended up in this path anyway, and you love what you do. It's got to be relatable to some people for sure, because I for one, I didn't know what I wanted to do for the longest time. I ended up going to school for a trade. I am partly in it now, but I'm in a much better situation. I love my job. I go to my job every day being happy, which is just a huge aspect to your life in general. You're there for so much of the day. But it's really, really interesting to hear you talk about the keto diet. When I first started this, or maybe even years ago, when I decided I want to start losing weight, I tried the keto. Every Monday was a new routine for me. That's what I always said. I'll start on Monday. I'll start on Monday. I'll start on Monday. That was always my thing. And and I tried the keto, and I did it for 2, maybe 3 weeks. I dropped a ton of weight. And you know what? I don't think at that time I didn't have brain fog. I didn't have problems staying awake or anything. So I don't know if I would have noticed those benefits, but it's really interesting to hear you talk about all the benefits that were a part of it. Do you push away keto now if someone asks you about it?
No, and so what I tell people is there is not one perfect way of eating that works for everybody. And what works for you now may not work for you 5 or 10 years from now. So I don't think there's any particular diet that, that you should absolutely avoid. And I do think that a ketogenic diet works for a lot of people, but not for everybody, and there are some women who at that same age that I did it, it may not have worked for because of the hormonal situation that they were in at that particular time, or their stress level, or their thyroid function. Like there's so many pieces, again, that whole holistic piece, like you have to really take into account somebody's health and state of their metabolism and how they sleep and all of those things. So with a ketogenic diet, what I've learned is that people become insulin resistant with age. So insulin resistant, meaning that your body, your cells can't listen to insulin or won't listen to insulin. So insulin can't get the sugar out of your blood into your cells. So what that means is your blood sugar is rising. So you're on your way to pre-diabetes and diabetes. So this happens naturally, even if you ate a proper diet all of your life. This just happens because of hormones and various things. And so a lot of people benefit just from reducing the carbohydrate intake in their day-to-day life, whether it's ketogenic or not. And so, women seem to be more sensitive to this. And so I think that a ketogenic diet is a great, like a jump start into fixing the blood sugar issue, which leads to the fat fog and fatigue. And then maybe figuring out what your threshold for carbohydrates is. So you do this for, say, a strict ketogenic diet for, say, 21 days or a month, and then slowly start to increase the carbs until you get to the point where you're not getting those benefits that you're wanting. Maybe your weight is starting to creep up a little bit, or you're not quite as energetic as you were, and then you bring it back down again. So it's going to be a little different for everybody. And some people will do better with more carbs, and some people will do better with fewer carbs. And, it's that whole holistic thing again. So, yeah.
I gotta say, it's very nice to hear you talk about it. It's hard because I feel like a lot of the aspects of diets, that word, always point to a one-stop solution for every single person. So I think I really do like the fact that you talk about, and maybe this is all nutritionists, I have no idea, but you talk about how there's a different diet for every single person depending on their body, their metabolism, their age, all these different things take into account so big. And it is very nice to hear you talk about keto in not like the way I've always looked at it is people are either for or against it. They either have done it and they think it's the best thing in the world and they'll live and die by it, or they're like, there's no way that works. I can't just eat fat or I can't just cut out carbs and sugar and just eat fat and lose a bunch of weight and feel amazing. They don't buy into it. And I did it because I watched a friend do it for a year and a half, drop 100 and something pounds, and he was very strict keto. And he really lived the mindset of he would put himself into ketosis. I don't know how much all this is, but he put himself into ketosis. And if we went away for the weekend, like a Bills game, he'd treat himself to some like wings one night, and then he'd be right back in the next Monday busting to get himself back into ketosis. And he kept that routine, and it seemed to work for him pretty well. But I never realized that. And you make a very good point. I'm just trying to process this keto thing.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. But I do think it's a cool take for you to say, like, to start out keto, doing it for 21 days, start introducing carbs slowly and find out that balance of your rewards that you're getting, or like the way you're feeling on keto, and then still getting in some of those carbohydrates.
Yeah. So I think what I've seen in people is that they'll do the keto hardcore, And the way you describe how your friend did it, like that, I would consider that to be hardcore. I would think that would be hard for most people to maintain for the rest of their lives, right? And if you're not going to do that for the rest of your life, there's no point in starting, because as soon as you go back to eating the way you were before, you're going to gain all that weight back. You're going to feel terrible. You'll likely gain more weight back, and you've messed up your metabolism, right? So I think that's what happens is people, they're so strict with the keto, they can't maintain it. So then they instead of slowly introducing carbs, they just go back to eating the way they were before. And then it really messes up their blood sugar. When your blood sugar is messed up, your appetite goes through the roof, and and cravings. And those are really hard for people to deal with, because this is a hormonal situation you're talking about. This isn't just like a mindset, like you feel like eating something, you want the chips because they taste good. It's this hormonal thing going on in your body, and your body's it's in survival mode. And so that you're going from one extreme to another, right? The extreme of the ketogenic to the eating too many carbs. So I like to teach my clients how to make that transition gradually and figure out what works best for them, and really like pay attention to your body. Your body will tell you, it'll give you signals about when to eat and how much to eat, and that can vary from day to day. So that's I think is a much more balanced way to approach that way of eating and make it work for you.
I'm very excited that this got talked about. I'm really excited that you brought up keto and how it was a part of your life and how it made you feel better, and how you introduced carbohydrates and how you now put it into other people's lives. Because I feel like there's so many people out there that just sometimes either look to keto as this like last resort. I'm just going to bust this for a month and I'll lose a bunch of weight. And then it really does go the complete opposite way. They end up screwing their body over. So it's cool to talk to someone who takes nutrition so seriously, and it is their profession. They're the expert in it, and still have them talk about keto and ways to do it in a healthy manner. It's honestly really nice to hear.
Yeah.
I think one of my bigger questions for you is and I don't even know if keto would have got brought up, but do you think that in today, the general population, do you think there's something that's overlooked by the majority of population when it comes to nutrition?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I think that people overcomplicate it. And it's not their fault. I think it becomes complicated because there's so many different things to read in the media or hear in the media, and all of these different messages that it feels very complicated. And so then people are searching for the right way to eat or the perfect food or whatever, right? And as I said, I don't believe there is one perfect way of eating. So my advice would be to keep things as simple as possible. And this will be a little different for everybody based on where you're starting from and what your nutrition knowledge is. But if people do just take a few simple steps, like eating, like minimizing processed food, that's the biggest thing. So eat as much whole foods. When I say whole foods, I mean foods that are like as closest to nature as possible, right? So in other words, like eating like real meat. So eating roast beef or eating like chicken, as opposed to like chicken nuggets or some kind of processed meat product. And then eating lots of fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables, and drinking water, minimizing sugar. So taking sugar and processed foods out of your diet can make a huge difference. And when I say processed foods, I'm not just talking about the chicken nuggets. I'm also talking about like foods that are made with flour, so white flour. So that's very, very processed, right? And even whole wheat flour. When we talk about, foods being in their whole form, whole wheat flour, even though it's got the fiber and all of that in it, it doesn't occur that way in nature. It's processed into a flour that's absorbed into our bloodstream really quickly. So it still affects our hormones, our metabolic hormones, our blood sugar. So, I'm not saying never have bread again or never have pasta again, but let's change the ratio and eat more of the whole foods and less of the other stuff. So, just doing those little things, having lots of variety in your diet, lots of, don't just eat the same 5 vegetables all the time because they you know, food is so complex. There's all these amazing phytochemicals and naturally occurring compounds in food that probably lots that we don't even know about yet that can have such a huge impact in our health. So the more variety, the better. Drinking water, that's a big thing, right? We should be drinking between 2.5 to 3 liters of water per day and more if you're active. And the other thing about, you know, don't overlook the fact that your body is smart and it will tell you, as I said, eat when you're hungry and stop when you're not, when you're like 100% full, when you're like 80% full. So that means like being mindful when you're eating, paying attention, taking time to eat. Don't be eating in a rush or on the run. I know that's not always possible, but as often as you can, like actually sit down at a table, eat, and pay attention to those cues that your body is giving you. Most of us just eat too much. We put food on our plate and we think we have to eat all of that food, right? Or you grew up in a household where you were told you have to finish your plate before you can leave or before you can have dessert or whatever. But like just really honoring what your body wants, right? Not eating by the clock. So those simple things can make a huge difference.
I think one of the things I've taken, I've interviewed 3 people that are extremely into fitness and health that way, and talking to you, one of the things I'm getting from all of them, and 3 of them said it the exact same way. They said, stick to the outside of the grocery store.
Yeah.
And it was something that when I heard it, I was like, that seems so simple. And it makes an outrageous amount of sense. Because if you walk around the outside of the grocery store, yes, there's some walls that have some frozen boxes of processed chicken fingers and stuff like that. But for the majority, you're getting your dairy, your vegetables, your fruit, your fresh bakery, I guess, and your fresh meats. And when I started avoiding the rows in the middle that have all these cardboard boxes of food that last 9 months, I realized how much it really does affect your first off, it made me and my wife cook more. Like it just, and we brought joy back to cooking meals together, and we brought joy to just planning like really good meals, and we started cooking more. And we sat there one night and we're just like, we can cook, like, and it just sounded so ridiculous because I've always been a barbecuer. She's really good at cooking like salads and stuff like that, but it was like, these things aren't that hard to make. They taste amazing. They're good for you. We're utilizing the stuff on the outside of the grocery store. And it was just something that we looked at like Mount Everest that was just so easy to do once we started doing it. And almost seemed like everyone looks at it as maybe it's going to cost a fortune, but it's so not true.
Yes. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of those myths that healthy food is expensive. It's not, when you are, you know, if you're smart about it, right? You shop local, buy stuff that's in season, buy stuff in bulk and freeze it. When you're even like fresh fruits and vegetables, right? There's no reason why you can't bring home a bunch of extra kale and freeze some. You know, you don't have to eat it all fresh, but and I think too, when you think about how much money you would spend going out, even for fast food, it's so expensive to eat at, right? And then what is that doing to your health? And then think about that long term. Like then you're going to be, it's gonna decrease the quality of your life and potentially your lifespan if you're eating those types of foods regularly, which you think are cheaper, right, than the healthy food. And to me, like, there's nothing more expensive than that. There's nothing more expensive than a decreased quality of life or shortened life, right? Like,
honestly, I can't wait to hear your reaction on how I used to eat. Like, I'm on the road 8.5 hours, 9 hours a day. I drive 100,000 kilometers a year. I'm constantly moving, and I'm constantly like, I always just had this thing in my head, being lazy. I got to eat when I'm on the road. I can't pack lunches. What do you mean? Like, who can't eat a celery stick while driving? Like, come on, it's not rocket science. I can sit there and eat chicken fingers and fries out of a tray, but I can't eat fruit and vegetables or a sandwich. Like, it was, and you talk about the money thing, and it's only since this 75-day thing. I used to eat Monday to Friday. I would eat out. I would do KFC. I would do the Wendy's. I'd do McDonald's. And then I go, you know what? I'm going to be really good today. I'm going to eat real healthy. I'm going to go to Subway. Like, what? Like, I in my mind, I was just doing so well for myself. Or, you know, I'd kick in Freshie every so often, which I don't think is terrible. But I had in this mindset, like, this is the only thing I can do. I'm stuck with what I'm doing. And I ended up calculating when I started doing this, like, not diet, but I started doing this change of my lifestyle. And I calculated, I spent like $360 per month on takeout. Like
Yeah.
that's not taking me and my fiance out for dinner. That's not
Right.
anything except for my Monday to Friday
Just you.
lunch. And
Yeah.
when me and Kristen decide to go out, I realize, you know what, there always is a time for a date night or going out with friends. Trust, like it's easily justified. But to go out just to save and being lazy of cooking a meal and spending $70, you sit there and it's so easy to tap that debit card to pay for two meals that you could have made for $15 and you paid 70 for. It's so easy to do that.
Yeah.
But then we get to the grocery store, we spend $100 on 5 bags of groceries, and we're like, I can't believe that was $100. And it's just like, we were just looking at them so poorly. Like, we're
Yeah.
okay paying for this meal that's going to last 15 minutes and it's going to cost us $70, but
Yeah.
these 4 bags of groceries that last us 3 weeks for $100 is just outrageous. It's
Yeah.
just such a mindset thing, I think.
Oh, so much. And I think it's a bit of denial too, right? Like we want to eat out, like it's fun, right? And it's fun to have somebody else cook for you and to eat food that you wouldn't necessarily have at home, right? So we talk ourselves into it. Like the mindset is key. Change your perspective, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to like eating on the outside of the grocery store and how like I truly have 100%, I'm attest to, buying groceries is significantly cheaper than eating out. It's cheaper when it's healthier food, because I bought the boxes of cookies and the boxes of granola bars, and I thought it was so amazing because I'm getting 15 granola bars for the price of four orange peppers. And then I watch them sit on the shelf in my cupboard for 3 months because I don't eat it. When I buy vegetables and fruit, I eat it. I don't want it to go bad. I don't want it to go to waste. If it's getting to the end of its life, we figure out meals that we can make using the stuff that we have left that's going to go bad, and we started using it a lot more. I think that my biggest question was, what's your take on supplements? Do you think that we should be able to get all the nutritions our body needs out of food every day, or do you think that supplements should take a role in everyone's life?
I think that if you had a really well-rounded whole foods diet, that you could get pretty much everything you need from food. Now, that being said, most people don't. And myself included, like I don't eat perfectly. There are weeks where I feel like I'm too busy, or I didn't plan well enough, or I don't have the right food in the house, right? So I think most people will benefit from taking like a multivitamin, or maybe taking it like every other day or something like that. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? And the other thing too is that unfortunately the food that we buy now, especially stuff that's grown in the ground, like our produce, it's not as full of nutrition as say it was 100 years ago, just because of how the food is farmed, how the soil is now depleted of minerals. Like that's where we get our minerals from, is from the soil, right? And so if the minerals aren't in the soil because the farmer has grown the same crop on that field for decades, it's like it's going to be depleted, and so it doesn't get into the food, and so that it doesn't get into us. So it's very common for people to be deficient in certain minerals, particularly magnesium. Magnesium is one that almost everybody is deficient in, and we just don't get it from our food anymore. And it's hard to know how much you're getting. So you can see a nutrition label for peppers or whatever, and see what should be in a pepper, but you don't know if that pepper that you're eating has that nutrition in it, right? So if you want to be sure, then take a multivitamin. But if you buy organic food, studies show that it seems to have more nutrition in it. There are other benefits to organic food too. So that might be something that you would consider adding to your diet. Again, doesn't have to be all or nothing. A lot of people can't afford to buy everything organic, nor is it always available. So, choosing things that you eat a lot of, choosing organic for those foods can help to improve your nutrition. Now, the other thing too is that say there are certain nutrients that if you become very deficient in them, so iron is an example. If you get really low on iron, where you say become anemic, and you're tested, your doctor does the blood test and you see that you're anemic, it's almost impossible to get enough iron into your body through food. In that case, you need like a high dose supplement under the guidance of your your healthcare provider to get it back up to where it needs to be. So there's definitely a role for supplements. I don't think people should rely on them. Like, it's not a replacement for food. It's just something that, depending on how the rest of your what your lifestyle is like and what your whole diet looks like, then you might want to consider kind of filling in the gaps with supplements.
There's no test to just tell you what you're deficient in, correct?
You can get some blood tests done. I don't know if they can tell you like everything, but yeah, there's definitely some blood tests that you can get done that can tell you, some key nutrients that you might want to pay attention to. I tend to like going to see naturopaths for that kind of thing, because they're much more, how should I say this in a politically correct way? They're more open to it and more interested in deficiencies and trying to fix them, as opposed to, like a regular medical doctor would be more like, the iron and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I understand where you were going with, like,
Yeah.
maybe not in the political way, but it is very true. Medical doctors have their reasoning or have their role, but it does always seem like you go and it's just, here's a pill, like,
Yeah.
here's your prescription, here's to fix it. It was the same thing with COVID. I talked to many different friends, and I don't like to get into the politics stuff either, but I talked to many friends, and it was kind of just like, why are we not pushing just people to live a healthier life? Like, why not increase your cardiovascular system, the thing that gets targeted and attacked by this disease? Why not improve it so that you can just fight it better? Like, it just seemed like a weird thing, but I've talked about it with so many people, because it made sense to just try and improve your health.
Yeah.
But
yeah. So just a quick story here. So when COVID first started here in Ontario, my husband was one of the first people in Woodstock to have COVID. Still have no idea where he got it.
Oh, wow.
But in the early stages, it manifested as allergies. So he had itchy eyes, runny nose. So we just thought it was his seasonal allergies. It was middle of March, and but his symptoms changed, and it became evident that it was more severe. But by that point, I had been exposed to it. My daughters had both been, because we were just all living together. And my daughters and I did not get sick, only my husband. But I called my naturopath right away and told her what was going on. And so she just told me a few supplements based on studies that had been done up to that point. Vitamin D was a big one. So she said, make sure you're taking vitamin D. She gave me a mushroom complex that helped to boost my immune system. And melatonin, of all things, we think of that as helping us to sleep, but it's an antioxidant, and it was shown to help ward off COVID. So anyways, I took these things, and my kids took them, and we didn't get sick. And my husband was sick for 2 weeks. Like, how can you explain that with this super contagious virus, right? But it just goes to show you how boosting your immune system, supporting it must have had a positive impact, right?
I have to say, yes, 100%, definitely. It doesn't make sense that it didn't. You know what I mean? Or that sounded very complicated for no reason. It makes sense that it obviously did help. What was the person's title called that you went to when it happened?
It's my naturopathic doctor.
Naturopath. So, in my opinion, I've always and I was 100% guilty of this, and I did this. I always looked at it as like this hippity dippity thing. They're going to give you all these different little scents and essential oils and all these different routines and methods to fix you, and it's just ridiculous. I used to think that way. I definitely did. My friend is doing osteopath, and I know they're not the same thing for sure, but he's definitely talked more about it, and it's given me just more of a I guess I was just ignorant to it. It wasn't something that I'd ever talked about or learned about. I didn't know a single thing about it, yet I still sat there and shit on it. Like, it was just something that I looked at as this hippity dippity thing that people do if they want to try and fix things. But if it works, it works. People aren't going to these people and getting this placebo for 40 years. Like, there's people that live and breathe by it. And it sounds like you obviously consult yours when something like this arises, and you're finding success with it. So it's definitely something I want to look into in the future, but it's just not, it's cool that you brought that up because I hadn't really thought about that. Maybe I'll have to interview one of those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had a similar experience. Like I didn't know what it was, and it's same thing. Thought it was maybe like a little woo woo or something, but I had become so disenchanted with the whole medical system and not getting results for various things, or just being, given antibiotics for everything. I thought there's got to be a better way, because I know those antibiotics, they're killing the thing I need to be killed, but they're also doing some damage there, and I don't want that, right? And then I think when you have kids, then that's a whole other ball game, because you have this chance. They're like a clean slate, so let's do this right. And that's why. What's that?
Sorry. No,
and that's why I started looking into naturopath, and I was skeptical, but I've had such good results over the last like 5 or 6 years from seeing my naturopath. I'm sure there are good naturopaths and not so good naturopaths, but I love mine, and she's been fantastic for helping keep us healthy. So, yeah.
And that's in every career. And I thought the same thing with chiro. It's such a complete different topic, but I thought the same thing with chiro. I just thought like, whatever, like, it was going to crack my bones and you feel good for 5 minutes and send me on my way. But there's good chiros that'll send you to physio and work on improving your health with other occupations if they know that's what's best for you. And then there's some chiros that'll just say, you need to come see me once a week for the next 10 years. And that's your hit or miss with it. But if you're obviously having that relief from it, it's cool to hear. And it's something that's it is ignorant to the general population to look at it that way. But you're right, when it comes to the medicine too, it seems like every piece of prescription or Advil, Tylenol, regardless of what it is, there's a con to every pro. When it comes to food or changing your mindset or your stress levels or stuff that you put into your body, there's really no negative side to it when it comes to like fruit and veggies. And like you said, like you refer to it as things that come from the earth. And if you can get natural ways to soothe something that you're going to just try and relief with a pill that may not be long lasting, it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I think that, a lot of people they think that their doctor is the end all and be all, and that there's no other option. Right. But once you start exploring that a little bit, you realize that, you have to take your health in your own hands. Like, I really think that's important, because you know your body better than anybody else, right? And if you just are in tune and listen to the symptoms and just be a little bit smart about it, and not just take a pill for everything, you can have a better quality of life, right?
At so much less of a cost. To keep rolling, I did want to talk to you about some of the major food groups, and I took my own. Like you said, you always hear stuff on media. This is right. This is wrong. Don't ever do this. Do this all the time. And it's the same things. And it's just all over the place. So I wanted to get your opinion on some of the ones that I put into my mind that maybe have recently been changed, but has been a way that I've looked at certain food groups for so long.
Yeah.
The first one was meat. I always, just based on the word of mouth from the world, it seemed like chicken and fish were your best options. Stay away from pork, and beef's okay occasionally. Is that something that you think about?
Yeah, I think that beef, if you're eating good quality beef, it's like superior nutrition. That's my opinion. So what I think is that it's not the case. Asking if people eat too much meat is maybe not quite the right question, and because I don't even know if I could answer that question. Do we eat too much meat? What is too much meat? What I think is, I think people eat far too much poor quality meat, and so things like fast food or factory farmed meat. So I encourage my clients to eat. If you can get organic, free range, pasture fed, all these different terms, just better quality meat. Grass fed, grass finished, those things, you can do research on it and you'll find opinions from one end to the other, whether it's good or bad. But this is what I have chosen based on my research that makes the most sense to me. So what we do is we try to get the best quality meat that we can. And we're not doing 100% organic because that's not really feasible. But I found a local farmer who provides grass-fed beef. So we buy that whenever we can. And, I try to buy organic eggs, or at least free range eggs, free range chicken. I always go to the grocery store and try to find those ones. They'll often have them for 50% off. Like, I don't know if there's a stigma attached to that, buying the 50% off meat, but if you can get 50% off organic meat, like, why not throw it in your freezer and use it later, right? So, again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, but if you can do that at least part of the time, you're increasing your nutrition. Because the thing with, one thing I will say about meat is that the factory farm stuff, and when I say factory farm, I mean these huge farms that are raising like thousands and thousands of cattle or pig or whatever. They're often given antibiotics either like as a preventative, or because one animal gets sick, you want to make sure the others don't get sick. And I don't want that residue in my meat. Because I don't want to be consuming that. So that's one of the big things. And these smaller farms, these local farms that are allowing their cattle and their pigs to be out in the open and eating grass and bugs and all of those things. Like, it's been shown that there is better nutrition. The quality of the fat that's in that meat is better for us. It's that omega-3, the anti-inflammatory that they get from the grass. That's better than the omega-6 that they're getting in those factory farmed animals that are eating a lot of corn. So, and the other thing too is that the animals that are roaming free, or they're raised organically, they're being fed differently, so we're not getting the pesticide residue in their feed, which then is transferred to us, right? So all of those things lead to better quality meat, in my opinion. So maybe have smaller portions or less frequent meals with meat, but eat better quality meat and cut out the fast food. If that's what, that's my opinion about how we should approach that topic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how this question got brought up. I was actually listening to a podcast with Joe Rogan just before I reached out to you, and he interviewed a nutritionist. I got to the point where we were talking about the main food groups, and they had started talking about meat, and he hunts a lot of elk. I deer hunt with my family.
Yeah.
We process all that meat, and we make sausage with local, we add local beef and local pork to make our own smoked sausage and stuff like that, and summer sausage. But he talked to her, and that was like the flip for me, because I was always like, let's have chicken tonight, let's have salmon, let's have fish. It's such a light, it's the healthy meat. That's all I ever looked at it as. And I love steak, I love hamburgers, I love like everything related to beef. But I always thought, you know what, I should not eat too much of it. And I know that's probably still a good way to look at it, but it was so mind-changing for me to hear that beef could give me more nutrition than chicken and fish, which it makes sense, because chicken and fish, just even the looks of them look like such a lean, they are a lean food. Like, how much good could really be in them? I don't know why that sounds so weird to say out loud now, but they just look so simple. And I love beef, and maybe it was the fatty acids or something to do with beef just had so much more nutrition. And they spoke about it the same way you did, especially if it's farm, or if it's not the commercial farming, the industrial farming side of thing. And it's just, when you take it right back to that simplistic thing, like you said, like nutrition is just simple. Like, people just overcomplicate it. And it goes right back to the way you said about a cattle that just gets to roam free with 50 other cattle in a huge pasture, eating unlimited grass and bugs. And like you said, things that have proper nutrition and from the earth, instead of this corn that they scraped off the field that was sprayed with pesticides all year, went up in a metal grain bin and got transported by a transport truck, and all these different things that it just hearing it out loud and hearing the process of it, it's not easy. It's not hard to think about. I also think that when you talk about the price of organic compared to these commercial farms, I understand that we're probably never going to get the price of organic down to commercial farms, But if you had enough people that decided to make the change to not wanting to consume that type of stuff, and we could grow the amount of people that, or the amount of farmers that can grow organic, like what obviously cost is going to go down if you have a higher volume, right? So it hopefully that takes off, and I think that even over the last 10 years the organic side of thing has grown dramatically.
So, and I think it's more accessible now, and I think that even though it's more expensive than the conventionally grown stuff, it's not as, like, the discrepancy is not as big as it used to be. Like, you know, I think you can find some reasonably priced, and you can buy like a quarter of a cow, you know, if you do that, and they can process it for you, that it's a much more reasonably priced, right, per pound. There are ways to do it if you are willing to just like put in a little bit of effort and find out. So, and
I also think we're very lucky in the part of Ontario we are in when it comes to farmers and locally raised beef and chicken and pigs and free range chickens. And I honestly, like, this is going to sound so stupid, but until you talked about buying free range chickens and free range eggs, as you were saying it, I was going to ask you, what's the difference between like a free range and a not? And like just said it in my head. And then I started to process all the like beef out and not having 50,000 chickens in a barn stepping over top of one another, eating all the same food. Some are getting it, some are not. Yeah. So now that sign, like, just, you see it and you're like, oh, free range eggs, whatever, like, just keep rolling by. You see the sign, you don't really sit there and think about what you could get and go talk to that farmer. Who knows, if he's just down the street, you could like just buying local. And we've got such a very large amount of like local produce stands and vegetable stands, and it just it seems like the options are there if you just take control of them. Yeah, if you just look. Yeah. So it's an example. We have our farmers market here in Woodstock. So there's a farmer they sell free range eggs. You can get a flat of free range eggs, which is what, like 30 eggs for, I think it's $9. Whereas if I go to the grocery store and buy free range eggs there, I'm paying like $6 for a dozen. You know, like, so if you just do a little bit of homework, you can find it. And then when you're there, you buy your fruit and veggies and whatever else. But I have heard great things about that farmers market. Yeah. From numerous friends just being in the area. But on to the next category when it comes to the fruit and veg. A couple points I wanted to hit. Are all vegetables not are all vegetables good for you? Do all vegetables have a point? Like, like when I eat celery, I feel like I'm eating water and stringy mess that I don't even like eating it. But is there certain vegetables that you're kind of like, you know what, it's cool to just consume them to get full, but they're really not giving you much? So this is an interesting question, because there definitely are some fruits and veggies that are like packed full of stuff, right? They seem like superfoods. Like kale is one of those, right? But even things like iceberg lettuce has been sort of given that idea that it's like useless, like there's nothing in it, it's just water, right? But if you look up the nutrition, it's got folate in it, like a lot of folate. Folate is one of those really important B vitamins that we need to, it's really important for development of a baby. In fact, if it's not there, that baby can be born with spina bifida. Like, it's so important. So iceberg lettuce is like, even though it's mostly water, it's got a lot of folate in it. It's got a lot of vitamin A and vitamin K and potassium. So I don't think that there's like, I think every fruit and vegetable has a purpose. I think that's probably the best way to say it. And like, we have these nutrition labels for our food, right? So if you were to Google the nutrition of iceberg lettuce, it would tell you all these things, and you would see there's a lot of things missing. There's a lot of things that are very low. But as I said before, food is so complicated. There's still so much that we don't know about it. There are components and compounds and chemicals, naturally occurring chemicals in anything that grows that have like disease fighting properties that wouldn't be listed on that label. Does that make sense? And like I said, there's a lot of things we don't even know about yet, I'm sure. And so I don't think we should discredit anything. If you like iceberg lettuce, eat it. But as I said before, variety is really important. So don't make that your only lettuce, but include it if you want. Yeah. I was really hoping you got me out of celery. I was very hopeful
So
that you
celery
said it was
too. I
useless.
can't tell you right off the top of my head what's in celery, but it definitely has some vitamins and minerals. So if you don't want it, don't eat it, because you can get those vitamins and minerals from other things. But if you happen to like celery, which doesn't sound like you do, you don't have to. But yeah.
I like it cooked. I like it cooked in like spaghetti or in any kind of pasta dish like that, or I just
Really?
highly prefer it cooked.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Never had celery in spaghetti?
Nope.
Oh, celery
Have
and diced
not.
onions in spaghetti. It's really good.
Oh,
But
okay.
I guess that takes me on to the fruit side of things. When it comes to the
Yeah.
fruit side, is there any sugar in fruit that is not good for you, and can you overconsume it?
Yeah, I think you can overconsume fruit. So fruit has the type of sugar that's in fruit is called fructose. And fructose is interesting because another type of sugar that we eat is like glucose. You've probably heard glucose, right?
Yep.
When it's in our body, right? So glucose can be used by any cell in your body, can be metabolized, and used by any cell. Whereas fructose needs your liver, and your liver is the only organ that can metabolize fructose. And so if you were to consume too much fruit, and how much is too much, that's going to be different for everybody, but it could be stressful on your liver. And our liver has so many different functions. It's so vital. And if it's busy doing other things, like if you consume a lot of alcohol, your liver is going to be busy detoxing that. If you are on a lot of medications or pharmaceuticals or whatever, your liver is going to be busy detoxifying your blood from that. And so then you throw a whole bunch of fruit on it, like it's pretty busy, And so have you heard of fatty liver disease? There's
Definitely.
non-alcoholic fatty liver and alcoholic fatty liver, but they're essentially the same thing. But it's where your liver, it gets backed up with fat as it's so busy doing all of these jobs, and it sometimes gets backed up with fat. There's a whole mechanism there, but that's simplified. That's what happens, and that can cause all kinds of problems, and it can eventually lead to cirrhosis of the liver. So I'm not saying that eating a lot of fruit is going to give you cirrhosis of the liver, but you have to look at the whole picture and what your lifestyle is like. I think that there's a lot of benefit to eating fruit, but I would say keep it to like max 3 servings a day as part of your healthy eating.
So I think what I'm taking from this, when it comes down to the consumption of fruit and how it breaks down in your liver's already working with so much other things, especially if you bring alcohol into it. So I'm thinking I have to choose beer over fruit, and I think I'm taking beer.
Okay.
As I sit here and drink a beer with a nutritionist.
Don't stress out your liver. Yeah.
I thought I would drink a beer during this podcast and just see if you said anything and see if we could talk on that. I know it's such a weird place to put it in the podcast, but you talk about the way your liver breaks down certain things, and it's very cool to hear that you can overeat it because that type of sugar that is in fruit has to be processed by your liver, and it's already got so many other functions and things to do. So you should limit your consumption per day. Not obviously get rid of it or it's not bad for you, but it can be harmful to you in large consumption. So when you talk about the alcohol consumption, do you just tell people like alcohol is just terrible for you? Obviously, there's really no gains to it other than happiness. But when it comes to someone's diet, do people usually ask you about alcohol?
Yeah, some people do. I think it's fine if you're drinking it in moderation, right? So for men, that's like no more than 1 or 2 drinks a day. But even that's the recommended limit. But I feel like even that's pretty high. Like if you were drinking 2 drinks a day every day, that's going to have an impact on your health. Even though Health Canada says that that's the safe amount, like it's going to have an impact. It's going to have an impact on your waistline. Anytime you're consuming alcohol, your body is going to stop burning fat. So if you're somebody who is trying to lose weight, and I'm not saying that you are, but like a person, it seems like everybody is trying to lose weight. If you're also drinking alcohol, you're stopping that fat burning process while your body is metabolizing that. So depending on what your health goals are, right? For women, it's less. Like women shouldn't be drinking more than 5 drinks a week. I think that's what the recommended amount is. And of course, there's there's alcohol that's full of sugar, right? Any of those flavored, drinks, pink drinks or whatever. And then there's, clear and dry alcohol, which is a little bit better in terms of like less carbohydrate. And so it doesn't have quite an impact on your blood sugar. So I think there's, even within the alcohol, there's stuff that's not so great and stuff that's a little bit better. So choosing wisely and keeping your health goals in mind.
Do you think it'd be the same impact on your body and your weight loss to drink 2 drinks a day for 10 days or 20 drinks on a Saturday?
Yeah, I think 20 drinks on a Saturday, that would kill you, wouldn't it?
I have some friends that should be dead then.
Okay.
Let's change the amount there. Let's do like 2 drinks a day for 5 days or 10 drinks on a Saturday, like just 10 beers. Like,
yeah,
I could probably put down 10 beers on a Saturday, but is there like I don't know if that's ever been looked at or if it's just bad for you in general, obviously, but is it like that you're taking yourself out of fat burning 5 days in a row, or you take it out of it one day and it's a lot? Is there a pro and con to that?
I can't say that I've actually read anything about that, but just, I think it would be my opinion that having it every day would be less, like a small amount every day would be less harmful than having like a binge on a Saturday. But I'm not sure, but yeah.
Do you think that the entire process of getting drunk is outrageous? Like, I'm just asking from, I know it's different because you're so involved in this nutrition, health and mindset type of life that maybe something like that just seems crazy for people to put themselves through. But there's everyday people that don't drink Monday to Friday and get loaded on a Saturday and not have zero issue and just keep rolling on with their life. Do you think it's that? Obviously every Saturday, yes, it's obviously gonna be very impactful, but even like you said, you can't take the miles off the car. Do you think that Saturday of getting completely loaded or you're at an event and you get blackout's aggressive, but you get extremely intoxicated? Do you think, like, what is your thought process come up as that when you start talking about health?
So, I mean, to be totally honest, like, okay, I drink, and I have had times in my life where I would do that, like on a Saturday, like just drink too much, not 10 beer or whatever, but drink too much. Like I would. And I think as the more I've learned about nutrition and the older I've gotten and how I realized that this is not good for the body, right? I think when you're younger, you feel like, you'll feel better in a day or two and everything's fine. Right. But I think to continue doing that throughout your life is probably not a good idea. And I don't drink like that anymore because I actually started to feel guilty because I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? This can't be good for me, right? And I think like you still have a ways to go. I'm probably twice your age here, but as I get older, like I know my body can't tolerate it anymore. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna listen to this. I'm not going to do it anymore. So I don't judge people for doing it, but there's no health promoting benefits to it, red wine or not. So.
Yeah, I usually try and drink beers that have a fruit in the name to try and feel better about it. But no, there's definitely no, and I can see that. And any logical, rational person would realize that no matter what liquor or alcohol they're putting in their body, there's really no pros to it. I've had buddies that are like, I drank 12 beers, and it's like, and I've never been the person to be like, oh my God, what are you doing to yourself? Because I've been the guy sitting beside him drinking, trying to outdrink him. But them sit there and be like, I got all my water in today. I drank 12 beers. They're mostly water. And it's just like, it's funny to hear. And I've probably said it. So
yeah,
I've had my nights where I drink so much and I wake up in the morning, I feel like crap. And I don't know how many times in my life I have said to myself, I am never drinking again. That has got to be something that everyone has said at some point in life. I am never drinking again. But it's a topic that I wanted to briefly touch on. I know it's just kind of one that's just a pretty self-explanatory one. Like, if you want to be extremely healthy, don't drink, or at least don't drink on the regular. If you want to have a glass of wine with dinner or something occasionally, whatever. But That's something I need to work on for sure.
Yeah.
When it comes to dairy is the next group I wanted to talk to you about. There's
Yeah.
so much up and down when it comes to dairy, and if it's good for you, bad for you, lactose. A lot more people that are eating with a dairy-free diet. Do you think anyone should be eating, like, obviously lactose is one thing, but
Hmm.
do you think that there is more pros to eating dairy than there is cons for the average
So
person?
what I think is that there can be lots of nutrition in dairy. There's, lots of good points to it. So as long as your body can digest it, so it seems like a pretty large percentage of the population doesn't digest it well. And that's not even just the lactose, but just like it can irritate your gut, and it causes inflammation. And sometimes people will notice that they get stuffy after they've eaten dairy. That's a sign that your body's not tolerating it well. So anytime that you're not tolerating, or you have gas and bloating or anything like that after eating dairy, is a sign that you should not be eating it. And the thing is that if you're eating that food and it's irritating your digestive system, you're not going to absorb a lot of the nutrients from it. So what's the point in eating it? I mean, I guess if you're eating it because you enjoy the taste of it, that's one thing, but then you have to deal with not feeling great after and causing inflammation in your body, and then it's going to reduce your ability to get nutrients from other food as well if you continue to do that. So you have to, again, listen to your body, and see how you feel after you eat dairy.
That's a great take on it, in the aspect of the fact that you have said now that if you're getting gassy or you're getting the bloating of dairy, but you love it, but you also need to realize that when you're having those things happen, your body's not actually getting the nutrition facts out of it, so it's completely pointless to be eating. And that's a cool way to hear it, because I didn't really think about it that way. I didn't realize that was the way it was working. My fiance went dairy free for actually, and this is something I definitely want to talk about. My fiance went dairy free because she was having a lot of bowel issues and feeling like crap, and just every time she ate anything related to dairy or milk or whatever, she felt like crap. She cut dairy for, I'm gonna say 60 days, 2 months, felt so much better. The family of ours that make the summer sausage and everything, we also do cheese every year. We go to a local farm
Mm-hmm.
and we get 1,000 liters of milk, and this Mennonite family comes in with their trailer, and they process it all and do like 4 different flavors for us, and we press it all ourselves, and it's just straight, like, it just seems so much less processed that way, and it's
Mm-hmm.
unpasteurized.
Oh,
When
wow.
she eats that cheese, she has zero issues. She could eat a
Wow.
block of it and have no problems at all. So in her mind, she's now thinking like, what's in all this other cheese and milk and stuff I'm buying off the shelf that's causing me this issue, or giving me um this problem or concern I'm having, that I'm not getting out of eating a unpasteurized block of cheese.
Yeah.
Like, she could sit there and eat slabs of it. Like,
Yeah.
like, not, she won't, but she'll eat a good chunk of cheese and feel no issues. We'll put it on grilled cheese. We'll put it on, we'll slice it over top of burritos, and zero problem.
That's really interesting. I have heard that process of pasteurizing can change the proteins in the dairy, and that makes it harder for people to digest. So again, that's not a lactose intolerance. This is a whole other issue. So that doesn't surprise me that she does better with the non-pasteurized. It's harder to find, in mainstream grocery stores.
Oh, for sure. But
Mhm.
it does go right back to the thing that you said at the beginning, and it makes sense. Like, everyone has their own thing. Like, you got to figure out what works for you, and it almost seems
Yeah.
like what you do isn't necessarily a process of elimination, but kind of in the fact of, let's find out what makes you feel good, and then tack on certain things and move certain things around, and see if maybe certain amount of carbs is best for you, and certain amount of sugars, and certain amount of grains and meat, and does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I generally think that as North Americans, we eat far too many carbohydrates. So I get people to kind of change that ratio of fats, carbs, and proteins as a starting point, and then eat this way for a few weeks, and then see how you do, and then we kind of change things based on their results. So that's what I think works the best.
That's and that's a good moving point into what I want to talk about, because the next category
Mhm.
was grains. I wanted to know if
Mhm.
you're gonna consume it, is there a certain type of grain or type of carbohydrate that you would almost push people to eat if they needed to have that carb, or if they like craved it?
So in terms of grains, like if you so let's say oats. Oats is one that I think a lot of people like to have for breakfast or whatever. So if you really want to eat it, then eat it in a way where you're soaking it. So you soak it in water overnight with a little bit of acid in it. So it might be like it could be a little bit of yogurt, or it could be a little bit of vinegar or lemon juice or something. And that helps to deactivate the anti-nutrients that are in there that can sometimes cause irritation in the gut. So that's kind of like a traditional way. It's almost like allowing it to ferment a little bit, and that helps to like pre-digest some of the stuff in there. I know that sounds gross, but that makes it easier on your digestive system, and it allows you to absorb more of the nutrition. Another way to do it is we call it like sprouted. So essentially the same thing, like a grain is actually a seed, right? Like if you planted that piece of grain, if it was a whole grain, it would grow into a plant if it was in the right conditions. And so you can actually sprout those and then make it into a flour or eat it as a cereal or whatever. That is a more nutritious way to eat that food. Those are more traditional ways. Most people are not going to go to that trouble, but things like Ezekiel bread or a sprouted grain bread, that's what that is. So you get more nutrition from those breads because they are treated in that way. So
I don't know if I'm going to be eating Ezekiel bread. It sounds it sounds like it would be green.
Yeah, it's not. It just looks like regular bread.
Oh, does it taste like regular bread? Because that's what my question was going to be. Like, I like eating bagels. Bagels are my
me too.
are my issue. I love a bagel with either butter. I love butter or a light amount of cream cheese is my weakness. But obviously, over consuming anything seems to be an issue. It's like no matter what it is, moderation seems to be the aspect that we need to take on most of our daily foods. Yeah. But is there a certain amount of I don't like to call it like I don't call them cheat meals because I just live my lifestyle the way my lifestyle is. But is there a certain amount of that kind of stuff that we can consume in a healthy way?
So what I recommend is like the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, if you can eat as well as you can, like lots of whole foods, good quality foods, and then 20% of the time eat that other stuff, which I would call like joy eats. So you're eating them just because they give you joy. They taste good, right? So that's kind of a good guideline. Now, I will say that some people don't do well with that, because even if they give in a little bit, then it's just like a snowball effect, and it just leads to more and more junk food, right? So you have to know for yourself what's going to work. So actually what I teach my clients is to eat a whole foods diet as much as possible. But when you are going to have those treats like chips or ice cream or whatever, that you plan ahead. So you decide when you're going to have them so that you're not giving in the moment of a craving. Because when you do that, it's like you're rewarding that toddler brain, we call it. So it's your toddler brain telling you that you want the sugar, like, they're having a little temper tantrum. And so you're rewarding that toddler. So if you plan ahead and sort of set the guidelines, just like you would with the child, you tell the child when they can have the candy or whatever, then you're reinforcing better habits that way and not giving into that toddler brain. So that's what I teach my clients. So there's, again, that whole mindset stuff in there that's so powerful, but it can help you to be consistent and make better choices more often.
I like the idea of the 80-20 rule that you brought up. And it brings me back to the alcohol thing, when it's like, you do it you do 2 drinks a day for 5 days, or you drink 10 on one day. Is it the same thing when it comes to the 80-20 rule? Should 20% of my meal, 20% of my food throughout the day can it be crap and be okay? Or should I go 8 days of eating nutritious, balanced meals, and then have that cheat day on I guess that'd be the last 2 days, but would that be better for me than having 20% of my day be crap?
So I think you could choose and see how you feel. I think some people would do better with having like a little treat each day, whereas other people would do better to to have, say, like your Saturday night meal or something, that would be your cheat, and then just go all out. Having a whole day of eating crappy food, I think,
It's tough
I mean,
recovery.
if you're eating well most of the time, your body can handle that, but I don't think you're going to feel very good. So like I think a cheap meal is more effective in terms of maintaining your health than like a whole day. So however you can fit that into your week.
And when it comes down to like when you're talking about these cheat meals and giving that 80-20 rule, one of the biggest things I always hear in all these weight losses is a calorie deficit. How important do you think that truly is I'm assuming that's the only way to achieve weight loss.
So calories are important, but they are not the only factor. So you really need to look at insulin and blood sugar. So insulin is a hormone. So when I talk about hormonal reaction to food, that's what I'm talking about. So if you think about, so just to put it into context, so let's say like 100 calories of carbohydrates and 100 calories of fat, same amount of calories, but your body is going to react to those foods in two very different ways. You eat 100 calories of carbohydrates, so carbohydrates break down into sugar, so your blood sugar is high. Your pancreas has to release insulin to get that sugar out of your blood. It can't stay there, it's toxic. And so now you have this hormonal effect where your insulin comes in, does its job, clears the sugar out of your blood. Now you're left with low blood sugar. And anytime you have low blood sugar, your body is you're going to feel tired. You're going to feel lethargic. Your brain's not going to function properly, and you're going to have cravings. Your body is going to try to bring that blood sugar back up. And so it's going to tell you to eat, usually carbs, sugar of some sort. So contrast that with eating 100 calories of fat. Fat does not require insulin. So you eat that fat, and your body digests it and metabolizes it. It doesn't need the insulin, so you don't have this blood sugar rush, this increase and then drop after insulin does its job. Very different scenario. So you don't have that fatigue and that brain fog and the cravings and the increased appetite after you eat 100 calories of fat. So same calories. So I say that just to explain why just thinking about calories that's not the whole picture. So in terms of weight loss, if you just focus on calories, you could eat a really crappy high carb diet at a calorie deficit, or eat a really well-rounded whole foods diet with more calories, but end up having less of an appetite, having cravings under control, so that in the long run you eat less and you have a calorie deficit from a place of being satiated, satisfied, feeling good, as opposed to restricting calories, feeling hungry and miserable, and then binging on the weekend because you can't handle it anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100% it makes sense. And it's really nice to hear it broken down that way, especially how certain types of foods break down in our body and actually make us crave more instead of helping us feel full. And it's a really cool way to hear it. And it's a great way to end on. It was amazing to hear your thought process on the calorie deficit, because it's just something I never stop hearing about. Just eat less than you burn. Eat less than you burn, eat less than you burn, eat less than you burn. And it probably is true that you'll probably lose weight if you're burning more calories than you're eating. That it doesn't make sense for it not to be true, but you can also feel like a bag of crap and not want to continue past the first 5 days.
Yes.
So
yes, that's it. You can't maintain it. You can't stay consistent with that for a period of time. That's a problem. Yeah.
I have 2 final questions for you, and it's something that started with the last podcast guest I had and something I'm starting to do with podcast guests going forward. I have my previous podcast guest ask a question to the next guest that I know I'm having on, and then I'm going to have you answer it, and then I'll have you ask one to the next, if that works for you.
Okay.
So my previous podcast guest was a guy who I interviewed my first podcast. He ran 31 marathons in 31 days. He's a big fitness guy. He does like the Ironmans. He does all those. He's a big mover, and he's constant, and he's vegan. His question for you was what your tips would be to achieve good gut health.
Oh, that's a really good question. So first thing is eliminate any foods that give you gastrointestinal distress. So we were talking about dairy, how some people can't digest it. Get rid of those foods out of your diet. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever, but you need to get it out for a period of time so your gut can start to heal. So that's the big thing. Taking probiotics is really important, especially one that has multiple strains, various strains of bacteria in there to help replenish that. And there's also a really good supplement you can take. It's called Intestinu, and it's by Renew Life. And this has a bunch of different herbs in it that help to reduce inflammation in your gut. But it also has something in it called L-glutamine, which is an amino acid that is present in our body. It's like a protein amino acid, and it helps to repair the gut lining. In fact, people who don't have enough L-glutamine in their diet tend to have like this compromised gut integrity because of that. So getting that for a period of time, like 2 or 3 months, depending on how damaged it is, that can really improve the integrity of your gut. And then doing things like eating slowly, not eating when you're stressed, not drinking too much water with a meal so that you're not diluting your digestive juices. All those things can help improve your digestion and gut health.
Okay. Wow. I definitely some things for me to take into consideration with my own diet and different gastro issues I've had and stuff that I should start cutting out. So it was a great question. I appreciate George for asking it. The next question for you is, the next person I'm interviewing is an MMA fighter. He goes into competition and he fights for a living. It doesn't matter if your question is just regarding to the sport itself or if it's regarding to how he conditions himself or how he eats. Whatever you have, if you have a question for him, I'd love to ask him in the next episode.
Oh, that's interesting. So I feel like as an MMA fighter, there'd be like a lot of intense training, like burning a ton of calories. How do you balance eating enough food and also providing the nutrition that he would need to repair tissue and build muscle and all of that? Like how do you balance all of that? How do you decide what to eat?
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good question.
Yeah.
And in regards to that, like I had a friend growing up that was like extremely into not bodybuilding in the way of like competition, but he became a fitness trainer and he was just jacked. And I'd watch him come home and eat 6 chicken breasts and 15 eggs. And I was just like, in my mind, I was just like, oh my gosh, this obviously is the stuff this guy needs to replenish himself. But
yeah,
as he got better and faster and stronger and more intelligent to the fitness way of life, or however you want to put that, like being a jacked freak at the gym, he started eating more beefs and stuff that provided more healthy fats to help him regrow, and used a lot of new supplements and stuff too, because he was just, I think it'd be kind of hard to eat everything you need when you're in the gym for 6 hours a day. But
when would you eat?
yeah, exactly. He be blending all your stuff and putting it in one of those beer helmets. But I gotta say, Paulette, it's been an absolute joy to talk to you. I've learned so much on this episode, and that's always my goal when I sit down with podcast guests. I wanted to really thank you for your time. If someone wanted to reach out to you, either to join one of those classes with all the other women, or so anyone in general that wants to learn more about the nutrition, come maybe even seek some help from you to learn proper gut health and things that they should be ingesting in their body, how would they get a hold of you?
Probably email is the best. So it's nutrition@paulettekydd.com. And my website is paulettekydd.com. So they can even just go there, and there's contact information on there. I'm on Facebook as well. So it's Paulette Kydd, registered holistic nutritionist. So, and Instagram is Kydd Paulette.
So for anyone listening right now, if you're wanting to seek a nutritionist, especially in the West or Southwest Ontario area, there'll be a link in the description of the podcast below to Paulette's website. Definitely, like, if you've enjoyed the episode, or if any of these tips or information in general have piqued your interest, reach out to her. Maybe get a second opinion, and maybe find out if this is the best way for you to take control of your health or take control of some of the crappy feelings you've had. It seems like she's got a lot more to offer than just, this is what you eat from Monday to Friday and you'll lose weight and feel better. So I really appreciate that, Paulette, and I appreciate your time, and I hope to talk to you in the future.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, I'm going to put this at the end of the podcast anyway, after we've said goodbye. If anyone's looking to see Paulette, she's on, it was rogerstv.com.
Yeah, rogerstv.com. Yeah.
And under the Woodstock tab, you'll be able to find Cooking with Paulette.
Simply Cooking with Paulette.
Simply Cooking with Paulette. And this week's is low carb meals.
Yeah, the whole series is low carb meals.
The whole series is low carb meals.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Well, if you're looking to watch some videos of Paulette and cooking and different ways to adapt a low carb diet or low carb meals in general, then that's definitely something to check out. I